Just from a very commonsensical viewpoint, consider this. At one point, the finder says in his article, in a final act of selflessness, in what should have been his moment of redemption, he went to great lengths to protect my anonymity. Over the past decade, he and his family had suffered stalkers, break-ins, and a potential kidnapping, just to name the things that have been publicized from misguided searchers. I told him I didn't want to be looking over my shoulder for people like that for the rest of my life, and he was completely understanding. Forrest went out of his way to protect me, a person who he had never met before, even though in some ways it undermined the legitimacy of this hunt in some people's mind. In other words, Forrest is going to accept the fact that this guy wants total anonymity from here on in, because this guy, the finder, does not want to be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. Even though at the end of the article he says he's going to sell the treasure chest, at which point I would assume that his anonymity would be, I mean, I guess for publicity reasons, it makes sense. People are always going to want to know the story, but why in the world wouldn't you want to have the story known? You could make a fortune off a documentary, a good, well-written book. You're obviously a hell of a writer. You could write this thing, make it a 200, 300, 400 pages and have a bestseller, at least at the Collected Works bookstore. But anyway, Fenn is going out of his way, he said, to keep his anonymity because in a final act of selflessness, in what, I mean, come on, folks, that's pretty over the top. I mean, like Fenn said, yeah, I just said whatever the guy wants who finds it, we'll just do whatever he wants. He says he don't want to be known. We don't. In a final act of selflessness, his moment of redemption. Wow. Except that he says earlier in the article, for weeks, Fenn had wanted to fly me back to Santa Fe to spend more time with him. He even tried to convince me to move there. But circumstances out of our control made it more practical for me to come later. How was that going to help his anonymity to go live in Santa Fe? I mean, they going to go hang out at restaurants together and have dinner? And was he going to visit Fenn's house and like just nobody was ever going to notice that the guy who found the treasure was now living in Forrest Fenn's town? Near him, I assume? That sounds, what's the word? Counterintuitive to keeping your anonymity. I don't know, folks. I find this very, very sketchy. I love this paragraph too at the very end. I'm sure I will go alone in there again. Oh, wait a minute. This is just too much. I got to go back a second. What is he saying here? Getting back to the writing. Oh my God, I have to tell you his quadplet. Forrest sends $17 a square inch with a quadplet poem for Eric, republished in Scrapbook 177. Quadplet, of course, is one of those invented words Forrest indulged in, so who knows what it really means. But I tried writing one for my own friend. That would be Forrest. Cold, refreshing waters, babble of your life. Can I get through this with a straight face? This is for my friend Forrest. Cold, refreshing waters, babble of your life. Whistling pines proffer your wisdoms to sup. In your place the mountains rumble your name. Can I even try to shut them up? Isn't that haiku? Isn't that what it is? Haiku? Quadplet? Haiku? Maybe haiku is 3 lines. I don't know. Well, that really brings tear to your eye, doesn't it? I know, folks, some of you are saying, Eric, come on, now you're getting down and you're kind of getting down and being mean about the whole, a man died, Forrest Fenn. You used to like him. By the way, I got to tell you what's coming up. Folks, I would subscribe to this channel. We have more Forrest Fenn videos coming up. 2 of them I've already got in the can up here. But one of them is emails to and from a searcher. We agreed to call her Colorado Searcher. She sent me the emails in which she brought me up with Forrest Fenn, and I get to read his responses where he talks about me. And he addresses something that she asked him for herself about the treasure chest. And his reaction to that is pretty interesting. Might give us an insight into the real finder, if in fact there is one. Then the other one is about this horrible side of Fenn. I understand the Me Too movement, and I understand women accusing people of stuff they haven't done or being angry. I mean, boy, the old Shakespeare, nothing, hell knows no fury like a woman scorned. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. You know how that goes. You show no more interest in a woman and stuff or whatever, and all of a sudden you start hearing rumors, start hearing stories about yourself. That didn't happen, that's not true. Well, she said, and then it's just he said, she said. These women are doing a little bit of he said, she said. And Fenn became aware of this, that it was coming out right before he died. I'm not trying to dramatize the upcoming video. I'm certainly not doing free advertising for this documentary that is alleged to be coming out. If it does come out, I think it's gonna be, people are gonna be not feeling very good about Forrest Fenn. But now he's gone. Oh. Anyway, I wanted to read this thing that I thought was really interesting. I'm sure I will go alone in there again in the future and appreciate its beauty anew. Forrest didn't make it back to his special place in his final hour, but when I go back someday to lie down beneath those towering pines, tilt my hat over my face to shield against the bright sun, and drift off into one more afternoon nap in that serene forest in the wilds of the cowboy state, I know he will be resting there next to me. I hope that place will always remain as pristine as when he first discovered it. 2 people could keep a secret. Now one of them is dead. Wow. And drift off into one more afternoon nap in that serene forest. Then he goes on to talk about the omegas. The omegas that are at the end of stories sometimes, the little, you know what an omega is. It's like a little horseshoe. He says the relevance of those double omegas will go to the grave with the man who wrote the poem, and so it is. Pisses me off, folks. This thing, all it's managed to do is piss me off, and I'm surprised more people aren't pissed off. Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of links to one very good link that was sent to me by somebody called How Forrest Fenn Created a Cult. First time I ever saw it, I read some negative things about it by one of the ladies who accused Fenn of inappropriate behavior. I'm going to leave that link. I thought it was very interesting, trying to keep an open mind. And then the chat between Dale Neitzel and Amy Seeks and Cynthia Meacham and a couple other people that pop in and out, some of whom you'll recognize. I'll leave that link. It's a very, very good conversation they have. Then I have some questions. And by the way, there'll be a number of links. I mean, there'll be a link, of course, to the Finder's page, the Medium page, where the Finder published the story. The page for writers, hired writers, PR people, hacks, as people describe the page. Scott sent me this, so I'm going to give you some of the questions he had about the Finder's story. Not all of them, but the ones that I think are more relevant. Well, as he says, the motivation for this post seems to be to rehabilitate Fenn's image. Why didn't he do this while Fenn was still alive, if he planned on going public? Exactly. And other people have asked that question. One of them in a page I was reading they were even kind of angry about it. Where were you when Fenn needed you? You could have said you were the finder and the treasure really exists, etc., when he was still alive. But you wait until he's gone. You wait until he's gone, and Fenn's not even here to say whether this finder really exists. Fenn's not here to say, I don't know who this guy is who wrote this, but this ain't the guy that I know who's the finder. Something to think about. Yeah, Fenn's gone, now this guy's here. When Fenn was alive, this guy wasn't here. Interesting. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Scott says, Medium.com is one of the worst places to publish if you want to remain anonymous. You have to register there with your ID. I did not know that. I did not know that. If you mean, Scott, your idea as in driver's license or something, then I suppose that someone needs to get out there and start cracking on this Medium.com and see if they can figure out who actually wrote this story. Scott brings up something I mentioned earlier. The finder spent 25 days looking for the treasure, but after he found it, he didn't have time to spend more time with Fenn. Well, he had 3 months to spend with Fenn, right? Fenn died. Oh, and I want to make something very clear, too, that a couple of people dogged on me correctly. The thing about Forrest Fenn announced the find on D-Day. It's D-Day. It's December 6th. It's June 6th. And someone said, Eric, 3 months later, Forrest Fenn died on Labor Day. Now, I understand there just can't be possibly anything to read into Labor Day that I can think of. But again, it is really interesting that the treasure's announced on a holiday, a day of remembrance, let's say. And Fenn dies on a holiday. It's just more of this stuff with Fenn that you just, it shouldn't mean anything, probably doesn't, but it's just, it starts to get to you. Scott says, millennials don't like to call themselves millennials. He does refer to himself, the finder, as a millennial. I don't know. Oh, I know something I forgot to mention. Alas, I'm a millennial and have student loans to pay off, so it wouldn't be prudent to continue to own the Fenn treasure. And at the end of the day, for all of our similarities, Forrest and I couldn't be less alike when it comes to collecting. I'm the kind of person who feels burdened by possessions and most free adventuring the world out of a carry-on suitcase. So the treasure and I will have to soon part, and I will offer it for sale, minus the turquoise row bracelet, returned to Fenn, of course, returned to Forrest, of course. Forrest had a final wish for where he thought the treasure should end up. The first step for me will be to try to make that happen. I can only assume he's talking about a museum, and if he's talking about selling the treasure, maybe he's hoping to sell it to a museum. I'm not sure what else that could mean. But I do find it interesting that he is a guy who apparently travels around the world, free adventuring, living out of a suitcase, and yet he was, I think this gives us more of an insight into whoever wrote this thing. I could see a writer doing that. I could see one of these freelance writers, who runs around and travels the world and looks at exotic places and writes about it for a magazine, outdoor or whatever, if that's outside or whatever that magazine used to be. I used to read it years ago. Doesn't quite jive though with the concept of a guy who's constantly looking in this area though for a treasure. A guy who travels the world living out of a suitcase, free adventuring, yet he's spent a lot of time looking for the Forrest Fenn treasure, and now that he's found it, since he's not even into collecting stuff, he's going to sell it. I almost wonder if that was a little faux pas on his part to bring up that part. Kind of give us an insight maybe into the real person writing this. Here's the part I love. As for the legacy of Forrest's chase, I suppose it is in many ways in my hands, as wrong as that feels. To be honest, I'm not sure what to do. Well, I guess you're gonna, if you feel, hey Tober, I guess if you feel that you're now gonna inherit the legacy of the chase, you're going to be the one that's going to handle any negative things coming the way in the future to Forrest Fenn that he would have had to deal with, but now he doesn't, and we apparently have someone who's going to carry on the legacy for him, named the Finder. Is this a way for... Hi, Tober. Thank you. That was really cool, Tober. Nobody really not everybody appreciates the, not everybody appreciates you, destroying the, continuity of this, wonderful series that I did, Tober. You seem dedicated to destroying the videos whenever I'm doing them. Okay, so anyway, let's continue with Scott's questions before we go here. Tober, of course, is laying on him. Cat owners know whatever you're doing, they lay on it, or they headbutt it into submission. Let's see another question here. Well, this is actually a very good question Scott had. Remember the part where he said he called Fenn and Fenn didn't even remember the phone call that he had made when he was within 1,000. He had found the fake blaze, which turned out to be 1,000 feet from the find. And Fenn later said he didn't remember the phone call. And Scott said Fenn didn't remember a phone call reporting a fake blaze 1,000 feet from the treasure? Good point. He met Fenn in his home, but pictures are not from Fenn's home, and also Fenn was very worried about COVID and never left his own home. Would he invite someone in? That's a very interesting point too. This guy Scott is no dummy. He doesn't have any pictures of... Tober, stop it! God damn it! Stop. Why do you do stupid shit like this? Very good point Scott makes. The guy visited Fenn at his house. He has no pictures of Fenn at his house. Very good point. He has the pictures that we've already seen that came from this conference room meeting that we can only assume other people in Fenn's inner circle also have pictures of. Very good. Why does the finder not provide us with any pictures of him in the house with Forrest Fenn?